No wrecking balls needed. The destruction of the offseason is over. Ladies and gentlemen, we've made it. It's week 1 of the NFL season. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. That's Anthony Haney, super producer of this radio program. I'm Craig Hoffman. I host the thing. That's why my name's on the show. And we are together, Anthony, for our third NFL season. And we have a banger of a week. Typically, we don't even let you know like what's coming up the entire week as we're here. But I'm too excited to not let the people know, Anthony. So I think I'm going to let the people know what's coming up this week in general. Today is it's a vibe check Tuesday, so we'll get a bunch of calls this hour on how you're feeling, optimistic, pessimistic, somewhere in between about this Commanders season at 301-230-0980. So that is today. It's also a Tischler Tuesday, so Mitch will join us coming up at 5 p.m. Then at 6 o'clock today, super pumped for this. I talked earlier today with Bill Smith, who's the NFL Director of Research and Development. That's a big title. They've completely revamped Game Pass, which is their online service to where they let the rest of us that are not working for NFL teams watch film, and it's awesome. And not only is it awesome in that you can sort things, and it's just different than we've ever, like anything that we've ever had access to before, but they've also taken all their next-gen stats and integrated them into the same website in something called NFL Pro. And so Bill's going to tell us all about that and give us a demo, actually, which is sweet. So that's coming up at 6 o'clock. I would say if you're driving home right now, worth getting to YouTube at 6 o'clock if you want to watch the demo. But we, as I said, we taped this earlier. We described everything that's on the screen, so it works on the radio too, which I didn't think that was going to happen when I taped the interview, Anthony. I was like, okay, part of this is just not going to be for the radio, but that's fine. We'll send people to YouTube. And then we did a great job. We explained everything. So that's coming up at 6 o'clock. That's just today, Anthony. That's just today. That is just today for week 1.
Oh, we got more?
We got more.
Tell me more.
I forgot what we're doing tomorrow. But Thursday, Dan Orlovsky's joining the show. ESPN NFL analyst. He was on with us right before the draft. Good things happened in the draft. At least that's what we think. So we're going to try to repeat the good vibes, the good juju of Dan Orlovsky Thursday. Also this week, I think Thursday, Noah Eagle will recount and regale his summer calling the Olympics with Dwayne Wade, etc. But also he is calling the Packers-Eagles game Friday on Peacock. So Noah Eagle this week. Anything else that we already have? We got to never read the comments. We got Logan's thoughts on the game. I'm going to use this new NFL Pro to scout Tampa, so we got all that kind of stuff. We got our fantasy draft tomorrow. We'll review that on the radio. Tales of stupidity and draft picks, which will be fun. And then, Anthony, we also, speaking of stupidity, need to make our season-long predictions.
Yes, sir.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl? I'm 2 for 2?
Yeah, you are. It's not fair, though.
No, that's not true. I'm 1 for 2 on my preseason. I picked the Chiefs 2 years ago. I picked the 49ers last year and then picked the Chiefs the week of the Super Bowl because I just couldn't bring myself to bet against Mahomes.
Yeah. You've done much better than me.
That is true.
I don't think I've gotten close.
We'll find out who is cursed by Anthony Haney. Although,
it's over.
Curses are over. Am I going to lose to you in picks this year?
Say it ain't so, Craig.
It's not so.
Say it ain't so, Craig.
It's not so.
It's happening.
No, it's not. But, you can still do better. I can still just win. We're
okay.
Better, you know what they say about better? It's better. So that's all coming this week. It's a football week. We're pumped. I'm really genuinely excited about this season because I am, Anthony, cautiously optimistic. And I think we need to put that in a little bit of context because I do feel like some people have kind of run out of they see a lot of positive things about the Commanders, and this is new. This is a new feeling for us here in the DMV. At least new in the last 25 years. Been a couple of spurts of hey, I like that thing that they're doing. I like this team. I like that. Oh, they got some weapons over there in Washington. They won the offseason. How many times have we heard that before? But now you got smart people around the league. You got executives, you got coaches, you got the agents telling Standig last week when he put out the agent survey, like, man, Washington, they're on the right track. But, like, they have to build a railroad out of some deep woods. And I think we just need to remember the starting point for this. It is not common that an NFL roster flips over where over 60% of the team is new year over year. And continuity is really powerful in the NFL. The ability of a coach and quarterback to grow together, the ability for multiple defensive players, specifically in units, to understand how to play off of each other, to learn and grow as a core of a team. You're always going to have new pieces. Every roster changes every year. But to have no one who has anything more than a little bit of continuity with someone else is tough. I mean, the most continuity you have on the roster is like John and Duran know how to play off each other. They've been here a while. Jaden's got nothing but an offseason with these receivers. He's still not thrown an NFL pass. He has never worked with Cliff Kingsbury before. None of the receivers have either, except for what? Zach Ertz. Was Zacchaeus maybe with Cliff for a year? I don't think he was. Someone somewhere in that receiving core at some point in training camp was with Cliff for a year, like once. But generally speaking, there's not any continuity. There's no depth in terms of, hey, we've built an offense together over the course of 3 years. And that's the advantage of a San Francisco and what they've got, where like Kyle knows George Kittle better than George Kittle knows George Kittle. And so the ability to put Kittle and Debo and some of these guys in great spots. And now for them out in San Francisco, so long that IU can get caught up to speed from like a performance standpoint, and Trent, same thing. Like as long as those dudes are healthy, they'll catch back up. They'll be great. And you know, they'll be able to get up to speed based off the base that they have of multiple years of high performance. Detroit is getting the advantage of this. And typically you don't get a CEO-type head coach, a really stellar offensive coordinator, and a quarterback and skill position guys together for multiple years because somebody gets poached or somebody gets too expensive. And because Ben Johnson did what he did this offseason, you can hem and haw about what it meant for the Commanders or any other team that wanted to pursue him as a head coach, but that's Detroit's benefit. And so there is none of that in Washington. There's also the reality that when you have to replace 30-plus players, by nature, you are either replacing them with rookies or guys that didn't want to stay where they were or guys that other teams didn't want. And a lot more times, it's the latter. Yeah, you get the Bobby Wagners, who a lot of other teams would have liked to re-sign or sign. You get some coveted pieces for sure, and guys like that. Frankie Louvu, Carolina definitely wanted him. He didn't want Carolina. Jeremy Chin, same thing. So you get a couple of guys that are coming in that are choosing you, which is great. And they're choosing you because they think they can succeed here, not necessarily because you money whip them and they're actually not worth the contract that you're paying, which, again, is nice and new. But it does lead to a cautious optimism that while the processes, I think, are good, I believe that these are smart coordinators schematically. I think that they've got a good understanding of their personnel. And in some ways, it's easier early in a tenure to have a good understanding of your personnel because you don't have the biases of all of them being your guys that you believe in. Like, you obviously believe in them, but it's not like you're blinded by your bias that we think this player can become X. So he is X right now. That happens all the time in coaching. It's like, no, you have to be realistic with where you are right now, and then hopefully that player will get to the place that you believe they can. You're not dealing with any of that right now. So there's a lot of positives right now, but at the end of the day, like, are there any blue chip players on this team? You know, Daniels eventually, but I'm talking 2024 blue chip players. Guys that we think could be Pro Bowlers, all pros this year. Daniels, again, he's a rookie quarterback. The swath of possibilities has the lowest of floors and fairly low ceiling based off history. I do think this rookie class could blow the doors off of some of that stuff. Like, I think Williams could have a monster year. I think that Jaden could have a good year. I mean, I think statistically, Bo Nix will have a nice year because Sean Payton will set him up to succeed. I don't know how much winning it'll lead to. But, like, I do think that there's a couple of guys in this class that are going to perform pretty well right off the bat. But still, like, CJ Stroud last year, I bet you his numbers are not as good as you think they are because people are like, wow, CJ Stroud, top 5 quarterback. And like, I'm not telling you he's not. I'm not telling you that he's actually bad, but just it takes a second to get going. So you have that. In terms of blue chippers, Allen and Payne certainly could return to form, but do they have the support around them with the questions you have at edge rusher? Luvu, you're hoping evolves into that, but that hasn't been who he's been. You know, Wagner probably on the wrong end of being a blue chipper in his timeline. Terry, question depending on, you know, how teams treat him, what Jaden can do. Like maybe he's a blue chipper, but is he top 5 position guy? No. And so there's just not that top end talent that makes you a 10, 11, 12 win football team year after year after year. And like, say what you want about the Cowboys, which for most of you, it starts with an F when it comes to the Cowboys. And if you say what you want to say, but like they have blue chippers. Micah Parsons is a blue chipper. CeeDee Lamb is a blue chipper. I think there are some coaches and execs and analysts around the league that would tell you Dak Prescott's a blue chipper. And if not, he's a red chip guy. He's right below that. And so I think that's how they've won 12 games 3 years in a row. The ceiling, you know, if everything goes right, all these question marks at all these different positions, 10, 11 games, sure. The floor, let's be realistic. I mean, we're talking about like what happens if Jaden gets hurt. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But you're talking like a 4-win team potentially if Jaden gets hurt early. But realistically, if he assuming health, like probably 5-6 wins is the ceiling or the floor, and somewhere in between is the reality of what I think is ultimately going to happen, which is a 7 to 8 win football team that hopefully has a gigantic arrow pointing up coming out of the season, heading into next year. But where are you? 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. It is a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we are checking your optimism vibes headed into the 2024 season. How excited are you? We can 1 to 10 it. You can show off your vocabulary if you have a word that you want to. I'm so excited. Fill in the blank. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to suggestions, but I just want to hear from you on this Vibe Check Tuesday. 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. the Hoffman Show on Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And our football coverage is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. Anthony, I do that read, and then my instinct, because I'm a stupid showman, is to throw it over my shoulder, this piece of paper that I have in front of me. But that would be stupid because then I just have to go pick it up every single time.
Yeah, you would.
I'm just going to put it back down over
there. You go.
Okay.
I think that's best.
Thanks, T-Mobile. Thanks for all you do. All right. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. It is a vibe check Tuesday where you call in, you let us know how you're feeling about the Commanders. And this is a week where we want to know how you feel going into the season because, well, it's week 1 and that's all we got. We'll see how you feel next week coming off of a game. But going into the season, where are you at? Optimistic, pessimistic, scale of 1 to 10. You want to get creative and show off that you have a huge vocabulary. That's fine with me. You come up with some word that describes your level of feeling going into the season. But let's get things started with, let's go to Brian in Alexandria. Brian, get us started here on a Vibe Check Tuesday.
What's up, Craig? And how are you guys doing today?
Doing great, bro.
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling 100% optimistic for the season, but more so for our future because, Craig, what we have that I've been most excited about the entire off season is essentially a new owner, a new GM, a new head coach, a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator who are presumably and maybe more so hopefully all on the same page. I don't know when the last time we've had that. I think at the height of our best quarterback play in the last few years, that was RG3, but you had a coach who maybe didn't really want him. You had an owner who may not have been on the same page as the coach. Any decent coaches we've had, we didn't have a quarterback to go along with it. So the fact that we have those factors all hopefully, like I said, on the same page, with a clear vision, hopefully that brings about some wins for us. So I'll sit back and hear your response to that. Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate the call, Brian. Thanks for getting us started here on a Vibe Check Tuesday. I mean, I think it's 100% the right answer for the long term. And what I hope is that people who used to call, not just this show, but all the shows, and we're like, quit talking about Dan so much. That even if you didn't care about the real serious substantive stuff that he was being accused of and ultimately in a lot of cases by multiple reports or whatever, and some of the investigation's still ongoing, not our problem, but I'm just going to mention it quickly in passing here, and you'd be like, none of this matters. And I'd be like, I promise you who the owner is matters. And again, even if you don't care about the substantive stuff, some of the stuff that he was accused of, from a pure football sense, I hope you realize now that ownership matters. The difference that ownership makes. Because owners hire personnel executives. Personnel executives hire coaches and draft the players. And let's just say when Dan was here, we weren't getting the best to move to the district / the DMV / Ashburn to work for the old burgundy and gold. And now you have Adam Peters, and I think people instantly see the difference, and not just in the quality of players drafted and the clear vision of how they all fit together, but you see guys like Wagner, guys like Ertz, like NFL vets who have been around a long time that are like, I want to go play for that organization because of who is running it and the coaches that they hired that I have good relationships with and I respect. And that is going to continue. And let me tell you right now, if Jaden Daniels is as good as a lot of us think he's going to be, there's going to be a hell of a lot more dudes around the league that want to come here to play because everyone loves Jaden in terms of like in the locker room. His reputation's phenomenal. And who doesn't want to play with a really fun quarterback? And who doesn't want to be a part of a winner? And if Jaden's as good as we think he can be, then all those things are going to be true in Washington for years to come. So I totally get the optimistic in terms of in the future. Let's go to Tion. Tion, what's up, man? You ready? First of all, you ready for the fantasy draft tomorrow?
Oh, you know it. And please don't get mad when I crush you. Just accept it with a grain of salt.
Hey, if it happens, it happens. I am not blind to scoreboards. All I'd ask is that you don't be either.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
I can't wait.
How you feeling about the Commanders here on this Vibe Check Tuesday as we head into the season?
I'm feeling great about him. My one word is consistency. This year, to me, I have no expectations, but only thing I want to see is consistency. The whole organization has been revamped. The organization has done everything from top to bottom down right so far, and I just want to see the consistency go through. So I have no expectations on win-losses because they're all still blending together. So just consistency. I want to see consistency. The wins and stuff will pile up over time as long as we can play consistent, hard-nosed football. And so far, that's what I'm seeing. So I just want to see consistency.
Facts. Appreciate the call, man. Yeah, and we'll see you in the draft room tomorrow. So here's what I'll say to add on to that. I would say consistency and improvement, because like if they come out and some stuff, if they got some miscommunications and stuff they got to work out, obviously we'd want them to fix that. So I want to see the improvement week over week. I want to see Jaden learning. You know, I expect him to make some mistakes, but I think from a consistency standpoint, what you want to see is the effort and the intensity and the physicality. Like, you want to see Quan Martin hitting people. You want to see Jeremy Chin running to the ball and these dudes flying all over. Frankie Louvu running to the ball, and Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne not loafing on plays. And like those guys, even through the bad times, very rarely can I point to plays outside of like the average number for an NFL defensive lineman and say like, yeah, it happens sometimes because they're big dudes who play hard and sometimes you get tired. You're human. That happens. But like, there's no attitude adjustment that has been needed from some of those guys that we've talked about. Really, the guys who survived the changeover, like Terry, et cetera. Terry can say, I was out there doing cardio, but man, that dude was running hard to get his cardio. He just wish he would have gotten the ball more. And so at the end of the day, the consistency of effort, the consistency of like, hey, let's have smart game plans, the consistency of let's make sure that we protect the players we need to protect. And that's Jaden, obviously, in a very literal sense, but like let's protect Andrew Wiley from having to drop back in 5-step drop protection stuff without any help 30 times a game. He's not going to hold up. But can you use Andrew Wiley really effectively in other ways? Absolutely. And so I think that there's just got to be a consistency in understanding who the personnel is, how to use them, a growth in understanding, hey, maybe this guy's a little better at this thing than we initially thought. Let's do a little bit more of that. And I think as long as you get that, I'll be really happy. And that could, again, lead to a lot of really frustrating 24-17 losses where the offense just doesn't have the juice, or they kick a bunch of field goals and they can't finish in the red zone because they don't have that big vertical receiver. And then a bunch of you call and say that they should have kept Martavius Bryant, even though Martavius Bryant is, as far as I know, still a free agent and probably will be by the time you call. There's all of that. Maybe St. Juice doesn't take to the coaching as well as they'd hope, and he still gets burned on a couple. And big plays, big spots, you'll lose some football games. Okay, it's part of the deal. This is a year for me. Like my word of the year is evaluation. It's discovery, if you want to use that word instead. Like I want to know if some of these guys can play. I want to know if they get burned in week 2, can they figure it out by week 4 and thrive by week 7? Like I'm not writing anybody off in the first couple of weeks of the season. You can hold me to that. I hope that you join me in that. It's like, hey, let's put a pin in that. Let's see if that guy can grow, as opposed to that guy sucks. He needs to go right now. Like let's figure it out once you're in game and see how these coaches coach. So that to me is really the theme, the motif of the year. It's the consistency and effort, but the ability to improve and the evaluation that is ongoing to really discover whether this is a 1-year rebuild and you can Houston Texan it, whether it's a multiple year, 2-year, 3-year rebuild that it's going to take to get those blue chippers ultimately in here over the next couple of drafts and elevate to the place that they want to be, which is where the San Franciscos, the Detroits, the Phillies, these teams that are in the playoffs and competing every single year are, to give themselves a chance to be where Kansas City is, which is winning Super Bowls. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, and we're taking more of your calls next. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, 301-230-0980. More of your calls in just a moment. 301-230-0980 is our phone number here on the Hoffman Show. Team 980 always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're off and rolling in week 1. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, so how are you feeling about the Commanders going into the season? We'll check in with Mitch Tischler at 5 o'clock to see how he's feeling and go through some of the rookies that are suddenly on the top line of the Commanders' unofficial depth chart. But do we think that they'll actually be number 1 on the depth chart when they get out there on Sunday? We'll talk about that with Mitch coming up at 5, but let's keep it rolling with the calls at 301-230-0980. Let's go to Marvin. Marvin, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Brother Hoffman.
You got it. Marvin, old friend.
Yeah, Marvelous Marvin, what you want again? Let me just throw this at you. I'm pretty optimistic, which is crazy for me because I seem like I'm always pessimistic.
Sure
I'm just,
does.
I'm be a little skeptic on the offensive line. But other than that, I see the vision. I like what they're doing. It's exactly what I kind of thought that I would do if I was in their position. So it's always great when someone's like confirming what you're thinking. Other than
There's a
drafting
term
one
for that,
offensive
Marvin.
lineman-
It's called confirmation bias, and it's not always great.
Yeah. You know something? That's a danger when you're actually a pilot, not really when you're a football fan. So I'm good with being confirmation bias right now. I love that we have the new owner in place and the new GM. I'm going to scrutinize this GM until we start seeing products. Because like I said earlier, I still don't like trading with, like, the Eagles. I just really find that to be, oh, my goodness. It's like sacrilege to me. I don't really like it. But then again, we'll see how that plays out. I think that they have the right quarterback. I think they have I was a fan of Dan Quinn before all the Mike McDonald and what was the Smith guy from Detroit? I can't remember his name now. But I was a fan of Dan Quinn, so I wanted Dan Quinn. So this is who I wanted. He makes fast guys play fast and big guys play bigger. I like him. So we'll see how that plays out. I think we're on the right path. So my number right now, I'm saying like a 8. I think an 8, and we're building to the future. We'll see how this looks next year because I'm not really thinking we're going to be a great team this year. I think that we're looking at maybe 7 to 10 wins in between there. And, I'm thinking Jamar Chase or T. Higgins next year. That's what I'm thinking because Cincinnati's a crap show when it comes to signing their veterans. So that might be like my next thought. Give me
all
a
right.
big
I think
weapon.
that's enough thoughts, Marvin. That is the most rational call you have ever had with us, in which you forgot the number 1 coaching candidate for you're going into the process. It's Ben Johnson. By the way, he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. After proclaiming yourself a football expert, and then ended it with, "We're gonna go sign T. Higgins or Jamar Chase next year." Marvin,
Wait a minute. Before you cut me off.
You're so close, Marvin. You better be quick.
They alienated those guys already. I'm saying they're going to be available next year.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's deal with next year. All right, that's Marvin, everybody. The self-proclaimed Marvelous Marvin. And Anthony, you'll notice, did I call him that?
No.
You know why?
Why?
Because you don't get to give yourself a nickname. It's not how nicknames work.
I am in agreement with you, and I think we should just give Marvin a nice little round of applause.
Yeah, Marvin,
Good
you
call.
kept it relative. Like, you didn't color outside the lines too much today.
Not today.
I do want to go find the call, the most infamous Marvin call from the offseason. Because, man, what a difference 0 games being played has made. I'm
gonna do the research, and I'll get back to you.
If you give me a commercial break, I think I can find it pretty quickly.
Okay.
Go to YouTube Shorts, search by views. That one made the rounds. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Speaking of show legends, let's go to Ross in Tampa. Ross, what's up, dude? How you feeling on a Vibe Check Tuesday headed into the season?
Okay. You know what, man? Before I get into that, 10 seconds to vent about the fact that I've been living in Tampa for 8 years, and this is literally their second trip down here in the regular season, which I think is kind of bothersome because I used to live in the AFC market, and I had to wait every 8 years for Washington to come into town. But never mind all that, man.
Well, the problem
I'm
is they haven't
chilling.
finished in the same place in the standings. And by the way, Ross, I know last week you were trying to get me to come down, and then you just, I don't know, you wouldn't open your credit card to buy me a plane ticket last second. What kind of responsible economic choice is that? But the last time the Commanders played in Tampa, I was there because I was on the beat, and I will say, yeah, I was there in 2000 or in
Man.
whatever year that was.
18.
Yeah, then
2018, we gave up like 1,000 yards and still won.
yeah, it was the Ryan Fitzpatrick 500 yards, 3 points game. I know because I was there, and I will tell you that the Tampa Bay press box at Raymond James Stadium has the best press food in the entire league. So you got that going for you,
I heard
which
that
is
from
nice.
you, Russell, and then no, not Russell, J.P. Finley. So
They made us
I'm trying to get
Bananas
Russell to
Foster
take
at
me into the press
halftime.
box this weekend, but I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah, well,
But no,
sometimes things
yeah,
happen.
you're good, buddy.
All right, what you
I
got?
know, man,
Where are you at on the burgundy and gold team? Not your city as everyone makes their way down there, or in my case, not.
But it's a different type of optimism this time around because we're actually doing it the right way. The last time this team operated the right way, I was like 7, 8 years old. So it's a different type because normally I'm just excited to see my guys in the burgundy and gold, not knowing much back in the day, thinking, this might be the year they can become the 2017 Rams or Jaguars or the 2018 Bears and just shock the world and make a run. I just know that it's going to take some time. And just like my man Marvin, like I don't want to scrutinize Adam Peters before giving him a shot. That'd be like telling my next girlfriend, hey, I'm going to mistreat you until I figure out you're going to be better than my last girlfriend. Like, that don't make no sense. So I'm going to kick my feet back, and I know, like, this is going to be a tough game, but I really do give Washington a shot to, make something happen in terms of leaving with a W. Also, Washington, whether the Redskins or Commanders, they are undefeated when I am in attendance. So it's that game in the 2017 preseason. So hopefully my attendance this Sunday keeps the streak alive. And, yeah, but I think
we
we're
call
gonna
that an
mess around
anti-Anthony
and,
Haney around here, Ross.
you know what? I thought when it came out of my mouth, I did think about Anthony.
See, that was a low blow.
It was.
Maybe I won't call for a while if we lose. I don't want to jinx nobody.
No.
But give us 9 wins this season. I think we're going to mess around and backdoor our way into the playoffs because these guys are going to buy into what's going on here, and I think that alone will develop some continuity for a postseason run, postseason appearance.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I definitely think that there's a chance that Dallas and Philly have such fall apart, implode potential that I'm like, I don't know, maybe something weird could happen. Unfortunately, like the cycle of a coach coming in and making the playoffs in a crappy NFC East has not gone well, even if it has happened a bunch. Basically every coach, it feels like, their first or second year the past bunch of years. So I'd like to avoid that. Like, let's actually be good. But hey, a playoff appearance would be good. Ross, thanks for the call as
and one
always.
more thing, Craig, before you hang up on me, if I got time. Okay.
Real quick.
And as far as the Bengals go, if you're contending for a Super Bowl, they're going to make it happen. They got till Thursday to sign for Jamar Chase. I don't know what he was talking about. If they get all that stuff taken care of, the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl this year, and that's my hot take. Fellas, you guys be easy, man.
That is a hot take. All right, Ross in Tampa, everybody, delivering on being Ross in Tampa. The problem with the Bengals, not that we're turning into a Bengal show. Mike Brown is the owner still, and the only time the Bengals have been good in his entire ownership was when they had dudes on cheap rookie contracts. And then they have to pay them money, and they refuse to do so, or they refuse to build the team around them. So, again, ownership matters, which used to be a bad thing for the Commanders, but now is a good thing for the Commanders, Anthony. You'll love to see it.
Love to see it.
All right, let's get one more call in before the next break. But we got a couple of lines open. We've got a couple more calls. So if you're on hold and I don't click your name, click you on and / say your name in 5 seconds, then stay there. 301-230-0980 is where you call to get in line. Let's go to Vaughn. Vaughn, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Thanks for taking my call, Hoff. I'm gonna keep it real short and sweet
All right.
you. My assessment for this season is 6 wins, maybe 7 or 8, and that just comes with the coaching. The reason why I'm saying that because number one, I like the quarterback talent, but we're also dealing with a rookie. The O-line is we have some gray areas on the O-line, and our corners and corners are got some issues and question marks about that. And you doing with this is the NFL, getting the league with the defensive coordinators, everything like that. You're gonna have to make a rookie beat you. So I'm a gamble, and I'm going to play a certain way until he beat me. I'm pulling my hat back, and I'm coming after him. And then, because I know they're going to try to run the ball, so I'm putting 8 in the box to make him think. So that's my assessment. And this is how I feel for the season. I'm happy about the ownership and and the coaching staff and all that. But I'm just not sure about the personnel for the first year.
Vaughn, I think that's a perfectly reasonable call. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling in. Call back anytime. Like, that's real. And I think, by the way, there's going to be some weeks where D coordinators do that, where they dial it up and they're like, Jaden Daniels is going to have to beat us. We're going to put 8 in the box. Like, we're not letting B-Rob get off. And there's some weeks that they're going to do it, and Jaden Daniels is going to go absolutely ham. That he is going to just be on, and he's like, you want to give me vertical shots? You want to give me one-on-ones down the field? I will eat that all day. And there are some weeks they're going to do that, and they're going to play these mucked-up coverages that are going to confuse the mess out of him, and he's going to throw 2 or 3 interceptions, and he's going to wind up trying to run for his life, and it's going to be ugly because you got the game plan right one week, and you knew where the pressure was coming from. You knew how to deal with it, and another week, they just keep getting you because that's the NFL, and especially it's the NFL with a rookie quarterback who just doesn't have the file to know, oh, this coordinator likes to do this, or 7 years ago, I faced this coordinator or this coordinator's mentor, and they did this certain thing which ticked off a memory in my brain that mean I need to slide the line left. Like, there's just like, that was Brady at the end. That's Rodgers. That's these guys. That's Mahomes at this point. Their files are so good, and they're so good at seeing what's in front of them, seeing through the disguises, understanding tendencies, and understanding what coordinators want to do, that they see right through that stuff, and they know where the answers are. And in year one, it is unreasonable to expect as much as Cliff is going to try to give him answers. And they'll keep stuff simpler than they will in future years because they don't want to overload even his very high-powered CPU. Like, Jaden's really, really smart and processes stuff really, really well. But you have to let a guy feel success. And that's just going to mean sometimes being a little simpler, and that might not be the optimal solution. And without the horsepower on the outside of, okay, all that stuff's great, and if Terry's matched up on a bad corner, sick. Let's throw one-on-ones, and Terry's going to have a 220-yard receiving day. But there are other weeks that you might have to rely on De'Ami Brown and Luke McCaffrey and against really good corners, and that might not go as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people love to, compare or, compare Jaden to having a C.J. Stroud type season. But if he goes out there and has a Jordan Love type season where, the Packers got off to a 3-6 start last year, but to down the stretch of the season where they went 6-2, he was able to understand coverage, just be able to
sign me up for that yesterday.
Yeah, so that's more so like where I'm looking at, and I to your point, I think he's gonna struggle throughout the season, but as long as he's learning and progressing and getting better, and he is able to have a strong into the season, I'm cool with that. That I'm not going to panic over the first 5 games, 6 games of the season just because all of this is new to him. And some guys are going to be like C.J. Stroud and have a great season from start to finish, and then other people going to start and then finish strong. So
yeah, I just want to see him have a chance.
Yeah.
I just want to see him, and that was the thing that bugged me about Howell last year is not that I'm sitting here trying to tell you that Sam Howell would have been an All-Pro. There were some moments last year early where I said it. I was like, this dude's got some stuff to him, and if they can figure it out, and who knows, the trajectory of his career is forever altered by last season. Do I think Jaden Daniels? If you played both their careers 20 times, I think Jaden Daniels is probably going to be a star 18, and Sam Howell might be a star once or twice, but. We can have that fight another day, but we don't ever really know because they just didn't give Sam a chance. The plan stunk, and I just want the plan to not stink this year. Honestly, that will make me so happy if I can get up here on Mondays and go, it's a tell the truth Monday, to borrow Dan's phrase, and we are going to borrow Dan's phrase. It's a tell the truth Monday, and the truth is that we saw Jaden Daniels have some rookie struggles, and as long as he learns from them, that's okay. That'd be an awesome tell the truth Monday. If I have to be like, time to tell the truth, that plan stunk again. When are we going to escape offensive coordinator hell? I'm not going to enjoy doing the shows this year. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Got room for a couple more calls next at 301-230-0980 here on this Vibe Check Tuesday. It's the Hoffman Show. Mitch Tischler's going to join us coming up in 10 minutes here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Then coming up at 6 o'clock, Bill Smith from the NFL Network, really from the NFL. He's the NFL's head of research and analytics, and he is going to tell us how and why the NFL revamped their game rewatch product, if you will. It's now called NFL Pro. No more Game Pass, which is good because Game Pass kind of stunk Now it's NFL Pro. The next-gen stats are in there. It's really freaking cool. I was playing around with it some this weekend. I'm really excited to dive into my Tampa prep tomorrow morning. Just sitting there on my couch on the laptop, watching stuff because I can sort in ways that I used to not be able to sort film. If I want to go back and watch Liam Cohn, the Rams OC in 2022, who was on the Rams staff in 2022, is now the OC in Tampa. I want to go back and watch all their dropbacks in 2022. I can do that with a couple clicks. It's really cool. Bill Smith's going to join us to tell us all about it coming up at 6 o'clock. Right now, though, a couple more calls here on this Vibe Check Tuesday, 301-230-0980. Let's go to Mark. Mark, thanks for holding. Really appreciate it. Where are you at vibe-wise as we head into the 2024 season with the Commanders?
Well, I'm feeling reborn from top to bottom. The phoenix is rising out the ashes. My view for the season, my expectations for the season is I expect us to be competitive. I want us to be competitive. I want us to put a good, solid product football team out there. Now, my problem, I'm going to give you my over-under. I got us 6.5. I got us definitely doing at least 7 games, okay? I'm going for the over.
Okay.
All right? We're on the strength of schedule. We're in the middle, 11, 12. I believe in the strength of schedule. The only thing I'm cautiously optimistic about, well, not really optimistically, but I'm watching the left tackle, probably the second most important position in football, is in flux. I'm not sold on the corners, Forbes and the other boy, Justice St. Juice. I'm not sold on our corners.
Yeah, I think there's real questions for sure.
And I think we got a real problem. We don't have I'm not saying it wasn't bad to get rid of Dotson. I'm an old head. I don't like trading in the division, but I mean, if it works out and we get what we want,
Sure.
I'll go along and see how that works out. But we don't have a proven commodity at the second wide receiver, and that's important because this is a passing league. We got a whole bunch of unproven guys, so hopefully somebody will step up. But those are my warning signs.
I hear you, Mark. Thanks for the call. Here's what I would say about Dotson in the wide receiver spot. You didn't have one when he was here either. Like, Jahan had some nice touchdown numbers. He had done some stuff in the league more than, say, De'Ami Brown, more than Luke McCaffrey, who's a rookie. Hadn't really done more than Olamide Zaccheaus. Maybe he did last year, although, Jahan didn't exactly kill it. But like a couple of years ago, Olamide Zaccheaus had 600-plus yards with the Eagles. Byron Pringles had some okay seasons. And from a consistency standpoint, like, made more, arguably, of his opportunities last year than Jahan did in that offense. Bad offense, but was what it was. And so Noah Brown, done more than Jahan, arguably, in some of the seasons in terms of he's at least put together back-to-back 500-yard seasons before. Jahan, I don't believe, can say that. So it is the kind of thing where the potential, of course, is a first-round pick of Jahan. I'm not saying that in a vacuum, perhaps he's not even a better player than some of these guys. But I do think that to be like, oh, well, they don't have a proven guy because they traded Jahan. They didn't have a proven guy with Jahan. And so you make the move, you get the future prospects, and now you get to find out if any of these guys, from Noah Brown to Luke McCaffrey to De'Ami Brown to Olamide Zaccheaus, can be a legitimate number 2 to Terry McLaurin, assuming that Terry can be a legitimate number 1. And if they can't, then they'll figure it out next year. But I think, there's definite questions. And that no one's optimism should be so blind that they're not like, oh, yeah, for it to go right, Forbes has got to play better. St. Juice has got to play better. Frankie Louvu's got to turn into a pass rusher that he hasn't been before. He's been a great blitzer and a really good player, but like, is he your top third down pass rusher? Is Dorrance Armstrong capable of being a top end of the rotation pass rusher, not a third guy behind Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence? Like, there are so many questions. And if, frankly, half of them get answered in the affirmative with any kind of strength, I think that's a successful season. If you find out that, okay, St. Juice is kind of who he's been, but Forbes is actually a stud, amazing. I'll take 1 for 2 there. If Louvu is a stud and Armstrong is probably better served as a 3, I'll take it. If Terry's a 1, but Diami and Noah Brown and all these guys, not ready yet. McCaffrey's, there's a reason he's a third-round pick. He's not ready to be a 2 yet. Maybe he can be a solid 3 next year. Okay, fine. I'll take that. But then at least you know. And that's why my word of the season, my vibe going into the season is cautiously optimistic and excited to see what happens. I'm just excited to see the evaluation take place. They've set up the team about as well as you could when you had to tear most of it down to the studs. And you rebuilt enough so that you got a roof over your head. And it's not the nicest house on the block yet. There's a lot of decorating to do in the future. Even some of your basics, like you have a couch. It may not be the couch that you want for the next 10 years, but you got a freaking couch. And you still haven't quite figured out how to use whatever the most important thing in your house is, a stove, whatever, shower, all the features. That's Jaden at quarterback. It might take a couple years for that to be optimized, but you got it. And that's the most important thing. And so I'm excited. I'm really genuinely cautiously optimistic because I think some of the stuff they're doing is really smart and it might turn into more wins than some people think this year. And I think some of the weaknesses might be able to be mitigated by some of the coaching, but that's a big might. It's a big might. But we're going to find out. And we're going to talk about it every single week here on the Team 980. We'll check in with your vibes every single week, Tuesdays in this first hour of the show. We'll check in with Mitch Tischler every single week, Tuesdays at 5 o'clock. Plenty of other staples we'll be unveiling as the week goes as well. But we are your home for football. The Hoffman Show on the Team 980. When we get back, our first Tischler Tuesday of the season. Hey, when you don't got to work on Monday, Tuesday doesn't feel that bad because all of a sudden tomorrow's Wednesday, and we're one day closer to football. Season opens Thursday night here on the Team 980, and then of course Friday you got the game in Brazil. We'll talk to Noah Eagle later in the week about that. He's calling it for Peacock, and then Sunday you got Commanders and Bucks at 4:25, and every single Tuesday, 5 o'clock during the season, it's a Tischler Tuesday here on the Hoffman Show.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
That's right. We're doing it this year. Tischler Tuesdays. Mitch Tischler, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast, of course, with JP Finley with us. Mitch, how was your long weekend, my friend?
It was great. Loved the weather. I got to play a little bit of golf, hang out with some friends, barbecue. It was perfect.
That is, I mean, good gracious. You draw one up on the Americana play sheet. Call that one every Labor Day weekend. That is A+ work, especially if you hit them well.
We had a lot of fun. How about that?
That's honestly, when I play golf, Mitch, that's all I'm really going for. But you actually play on a regular basis and have the capability of being good. I don't. But that's a conversation perhaps for a different day. Mitch, the top storyline today in Command Land is the unofficial depth chart, which is always a bit silly because that key word, unofficial. But they have kept Brandon Coleman at the top at left tackle. Do we think that the rookie's going to start, and what chance do we give him of being successful considering the lack of reps he's gotten due to the injury he sustained during training camp?
Yeah, I think his success level is the same place that it's been pre-injury. As long as he's back 100%, I don't know that a couple snaps in the preseason would have really made a massive difference in terms of how well he's going to play. I think for us as fans and media that are covering the team, I think that it leaves some questions because we haven't seen him play against anybody except for the Commanders, own defense. But the coaches have said for a while that they were excited about Brandon Coleman, and he was taking those first team reps kind of before he got hurt. So they're particularly high on him. I think we're going to see him start week one, and I think he's going to be kind of your guy there.
I'm not saying that I have no questions about Brandon Coleman at all. And in fact, I probably have more questions about Coleman than I do, say, Cornelius Lucas. But part of that is because I know who Cornelius Lucas is, and some of the things I know about Cornelius Lucas make me excited that Brandon Coleman is playing. Where do you kind of come down on your, I'll call it your nervousness level of starting a rookie left tackle to protect a rookie quarterback's blind side in week one of a season?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you draw it up, that's not probably what, the entire coaching staff had planned for week one for Jaden Daniels for the number 2 overall pick when they got it. But at the same time, they've showed confidence in him from the beginning, and they've been excited about him. And I think that, you have a veteran play caller in Cliff Kingsbury who, you hope is going to take the veteran route and, call an offense, call a situation that works well for this offensive line group, which, when you break down individual talent is what it is. But I think as a whole, combined with, with Cliff calling plays, they can get the ball out quickly. They can do some things in the quick pass game. And that's where I think Brandon Coleman's, big level up is over Cornelius Lucas. And that's his ability to get downfield and make the extra block. And that's something that this coaching staff asks of this O-line pretty consistently. So I think you're going to see a couple plays today or on Sunday where Terry's going to get a ball quick out to the left, and you're going to see big old 74 lumbering down the field, leading the way, blocking for him. And Brandon Coleman's athleticism gives him the opportunity to be super successful in that world.
Mitch Tischler, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast, with us on the Hoffman Show. I think you're dead on with that, Mitch, and that's exactly the example I was going to bring up. Is Cliff kind of comes. It's a different approach, but similar to how Sean and Kyle and like all these young offensive coordinators think about the game, because a lot of them were influenced, even if it was indirectly, by some of the same people that influenced Cliff, the Mike Leaches of the world, et cetera, whose whole like modus operandi is we must try to have every blade of grass available to us as to be threatened, I guess would be the best way to put it, every single snap. Because if the more ground that we make defenses cover, and some people do that by attacking more horizontally and then occasionally sprinkling in the vertical. The air raid traditionally has been more like we're going to hit you vertically, and that might create some room for us to do some really innovative and damaging stuff horizontally. It seems like Cliff in training camp at the very least was like, we're going to attack sideline to sideline. And to me, it felt like as long as Lucas was out there, you got like not necessarily hash mark. Let's call it numbers to sideline versus sideline to sideline. And that little bit, I think, will go ultimately a long way.
Yeah, and I think as you talk about kind of threatening every blade of grass, I think Cliff likes to bring that threat from a lot of different places. And so while typically you don't have running backs running, go routes or wheel routes particularly often, I think you're going to see a little bit more of that in this offense. I think, at tight end, you're going to see a little more verticality from Zach Ertz in the middle of the field. And I think the fact that, he kind of, the way that they look at this thing is to try and be creative in the way that they attack, getting extra blockers in front of their, running backs, in front of their wide receivers isn't only in the screen game, isn't only in the quick pass game. There's an expectation that if the ball is going out to the left, that your left tackle is going to, get off that block once the ball's clean and kind of work his way downfield and make those blocks. And so I think when you look kind of at the O-line in general, you have Brandon Coleman, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, Sam Cosmi. 4 of these 5 guys are high up on that athleticism scale and the ability to kind of help out in different ways. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch kind of how Cliff engineers this offense, because they can be, they can put teams in a bad situation in multiple different facets.
So next week, Mitch, we will be able to actually look back at a game and talk about, at the very least, a single game, which will be fun. In the meantime, we get to do things like this. Are you ready to play a game?
I am ready to play a game.
Yes. All right. So very easy game. Confidence levels 1 to 10, because there are a ton of what ifs on this defense. What if this guy can make this position switch, or can this guy turn it around? So confidence level that it will happen. I'll try to, let's just pick 3. Let's start off with the one that I think more people, I'm going to say, are taking for granted. What do we make confidence level 1 to 10, 1 being least confident, 10 being most confident, of Frankie Louvu's ability to be a premier pass rusher on third downs as an edge? Not as a blitzer, as a true edge.
I mean, if you're breaking it down to specifically Louvu on third down as a rusher, I give it maybe a 5 in terms of my confidence, because I think in those obvious pass downs, I think that's where you might see offensive lines are ready for him. I think what's going to be interesting with Louvu is when they bring him on first and second down, and he's kind of a surprise. He's kind of a surprise rusher for these offenses to deal with. I think Louvu might be the best pure pass rusher on this roster. Maybe Dorrance Armstrong from the edge position at least, or from the outside. But I do think that his ability to do a bunch of different things is kind of where his edge lays. And particularly when he comes early on in downs, I think he's going to surprise some teams.
I don't disagree with you, but it's, to me, like watching camp and the way they rotated things and everything they've said, I think when it's third down, an obvious passing situation, Dante Fowler's on one side and Louvu's on the other. And obviously Jamin and John Baptiste will probably rotate in some with that. But like, I'm pretty sure that's their plan. And in 2 minutes, it definitely is their plan. Like we saw that a ton in camp. Like he's going to line up at edge. And I am curious if that is actually his best use, or is his best use moving him around a little bit more like you were saying?
I'll tell you my hot take. I think Dante Fowler on the outside is going to be super fun to watch. And maybe I don't think he's going to get enough reps necessarily to lead the team in sacks, but I think his, sack per rep ratio will be amongst the highest on this team. His ability to use his speed around the outside and then also work kind of counters to get back underneath offensive tackles is pretty elite, at least as far as I've seen in camp. And one thing that I really liked that I saw was early on in camp, Dante Fowler knows his speed is what it is and is able to get to the edge against some guys, but I love seeing him work those counters and working, getting back underneath and kind of causing a offensive tackle to get on skates here. When they get to those obvious passing downs and he's able to, find himself kind of matched up one-on-one with some tackles, he's going to give guys a problem. And I'm not saying it's going to happen every down, but I do think that he can be an elite pass rusher in spots for this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. Vet got the know-how. We'll see how much juice he's got left. Going to be fun to watch. All right, second second confidence rating here for Mitch Tischler on a Tischler Tuesday on the Hoffman Show. And I'm going to go in order here. That's one that I think people are kind of taking for granted. Here's another one that I think people are kind of taking for granted, maybe a little less so, and then we'll get to the obvious what if on defense for the last of our three. What do we have in terms of confidence, 1 to 10, on Quan Martin's ability to be an every down starting safety in the NFL in year 2?
Yeah, my confidence is really high with Quan. I would say an 8.5. I think that particular to Quan, he was asked to learn too much last year and play in too many different positions on this defense. And I think the fact that they've simplified it and kind of narrowed down the expectations for him has helped him take a big step. And I think he's going to be a guy that you can rely on. And, you know, with Jeremy Chin on the other side, a guy who's a little bit more of a veteran who's kind of been there, done that. Chin is more of your kind of box safety guy, and Quan will be more of your free safety guy over the top. But I'm excited to see what Quan can do. And I think that he will specifically for himself take a big step between the play level that we saw last year this year.
No, I agree with that. I think it's interesting because he was much more of a nickel last year, and then they played him at safety some, but he hadn't really been doing it a whole lot. So I'm pretty fascinated. And then, you know, you do have the versatility to still have him play some big nickel, play some in the box in 3 safety looks with Chin and Percy Butler, who I presume, even though they put him down on the depth chart, but I presume that Percy Butler is actually the 3rd safety, considering he was the 3rd safety the entirety of camp. But that defensive backfield, Mitch, leads us to the final confidence ranking, which is the ability for Emmanuel Forbes and or Benjamin St-Juste to turn into legitimate, good, above average, starting caliber corners in the NFL. And for Forbes specifically, hopefully a really good one because he was a first-round pick a year ago. What is your confidence level that the change in coaching, what they're being asked to do, et cetera, can turn those guys into legit starting NFL corners?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of confidence there. I'll put it at a 4 that one of the two will become a good NFL corner. I just think it's tough. I think this defense, they're going to ask a lot of these guys, and I don't know that they're necessarily up to the challenge. We're going to see them stuck a lot of times in one-on-one press coverage at the line, and they're going to be asked to win those, and we haven't seen a lot of it. And I think on top of it, you know, the pass rush, I think is going to – the top end of the pass rush, I think, is going to take a step back from what we've seen in past years. And this is a defense that's going to rely on getting to the quarterback and putting pressure. So the quarterback has to get rid of the ball quickly. And these corners are, you know, ostensibly you're hoping that they're not going to have to cover for, you know, 8-10 seconds in the secondary, but I think they might. And inevitably somebody's going to break open there. I'm concerned about the back end of this pass defense, but mostly on the outside, not necessarily up the middle.
Yeah, the funny thing is, Mitch, like I totally agree with their approach in let's find out if these guys are good because we have no idea what they were because they were so poorly utilized last year. And if they actually are bad at football, that's a year 2 project, while also not having a super high confidence level that it's actually going to go well. Like I'm actually fine with the process, even if I'm scared / nervous, whatever, you know, wherever you want to be on that scale about the result.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll say for both of them is you look at what the corners were doing in Dallas the past couple seasons. They put up kind of gaudy interception numbers, but they gave up big time passing yards too. And that's, you know, seems to be something that, you know, Dan Quinn, Joe Jr. are kind of okay with as long as you're able to make the big, you know, splash turnover plays. They're okay with, you know, giving up a couple big plays here and there. So I think it will be an adjustment for ourselves and for everyone watching this team as to what counts as successful for this cornerback group. But man, you really hope that Emmanuel Forbes is able to get his hands on some balls early, get some confidence, you know, start working his way back to being kind of the corner that most of the NFL thought he was going to be coming out last year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, last thing with Mitch Tischler here, of course, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast. What is your favorite Commanders season bet that you guys gave out on the show, presuming that you did because I know your show?
We actually haven't done season-long predictions, but I will say early on in the year, I offered a wager, and it was a weighted wager, that Luke McCaffrey would have more receiving yards than Jahan Dotson, and the fact that Jahan's not on the Commanders anymore kind of makes me think that I have a default win there, but we'll get to that. My favorite bet is Jaden Daniels over passing yards. I think he's going to throw for 3,000 yards this year. I think he's going to be, the best rookie quarterback that we've seen since RG3, but, he's not going to do it with the same kind of flair and pizzazz and everything that obviously RG did. But I do think kind of long term that's for the best. And so I'm pretty pro most over Jaden bets.
So for the Jahan bet, was that one you made with JP, and is he going to try to enforce it as Jahan with the Eagles versus Luke here, or do you default win the second Luke McCaffrey has one receiving yard this year because it has to be Washington receiving yards?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to hold his feet to the fire on this one because we make a billion bets, and we end up if we end up pushing a couple, so be it. To me, it's a push that happened, and I think JP kind of agrees with it. But big picture, I think it points to the fact that I was right about Luke having a bigger impact than Jahan this year for this team.
That, I think, is very well put, Mitch Tischler. Very well put. Tischler Tuesdays, 5 o'clock for Not My Beat each and every week. Mitch, I'm excited to do this again next week because we'll have a football game to talk about. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Absolutely. Can't wait to be breaking down some football with you.
Absolutely, dude. All right, that's Mitch Tischler, everybody. Check him out, the Beltway Football Podcast with JP Finley. They do that a couple times a week. Just subscribe, and then bang, bang, it'll be in your podcast feed. And actually, Anthony, I was going to save this point for Never Read the Comments on Thursday because I had this conversation with a YouTube commenter in the comments, if you will. But what Mitch just said at the end there about what the bet means is actually really poignant. Which, is something that you say all the time about bet analysis. But someone was commenting on the conversation that we had on Friday's show with Nate Tice about Jaden Daniels. And, obviously Nate was a big Drake May guy in the draft. And what I said was, you should go back and listen to when we talked to Nate at the Combine. Because I had a lot of questions about Drake May at that point, and still do, to be very clear. But I was like, why are you so high on him? What about this weakness? And Nate was like, oh, yeah, I see that. I just don't think it's going to matter as much. Now, if he goes to team X, Y, or Z, that might matter a lot more. And okay, well, I like this about Jaden. He's like, I love that about Jaden too. I just think that gets mitigated in the NFL in a lot of circumstances. But then we talked to him on Friday, and he's like, actually, that thing that I said might not matter as much for Jaden is perfect in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. And so, lo and behold, I love where Jaden Daniels is, and maybe I'm even higher on him than I initially thought I would be before he got drafted to an actual team. And so what happens is, especially in draft time, but also in the season, we get so caught up with analysts, and this happens to me, and I probably also at times do this, but I think this happens, frankly, if I'm being honest, Anthony, to me more than it does me doing this to other analysts. We get too caught up with the graphic on the screen, if you will, someone's actual rankings. And here's Nate giving all this analysis, all this really good information and kind of the what ifs and how this could play out this way. This is a trait. Here's how I think it translates, but this is the thing I know for sure, the trait. And we ignore all that stuff but you like that guy better, so you must think my guy sucks. And the point with Mitch in the bet is, to take it to a different context, is his point wasn't necessarily here's how you win some money on a bet. It's, I think Luke McCaffrey has a bigger impact than Jahan Dotson. And that's good analysis, no matter how you frame it on a graphic, most important Commanders receivers, or a bet, or whatever. And I don't like the analysis getting lost so much. That's my high horse of the day.
Are you going to be placing any bets this season?
I might.
Oh.
We could.
Let me find out.
We have one. I think it's easier to bet in DC now, so
Yeah.
that does
Everywhere.
help things, as opposed to some of the previous restrictions that have been lifted. Maybe we should do a Commanders betting segment later in the week.
On a Friday?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of room. The week's pretty filled out.
I know.
But we gotta have space somewhere.
Yeah.
For Terry over under, B-Rob, maybe Eckler or Ertz.
Got to get our best prop bet.
Yeah. Yeah. See if there's any funky ones. Maybe we'll pick one non-Commanders bet, and we can just have a show pack that we're going to stick, I don't know, $5 on all of them.
Okay.
See what happens.
Hey, look, I
See
love
if we
it.
can make some money by the end of the year.
I hope so.
Do we parlay them all together and make it extra dumb, and just go ahead and forfeit all the money?
No.
Okay, that's the correct
I have
answer.
learned one thing when it comes to betting.
Do not.
Straight bets are king.
Yeah, do not over parlay. And in fact, really, you should never parlay. But don't
I used to do
over-parlay.
big parlays, big like 10-leg parlays. Never hit.
And it's just, no kidding. No kidding. By the way, really, really quick, because now we're up against the clock. We were going through on Friday our weekend preview, and I just for whatever reason remembered that Ohio State was favored over Akron by 48.5. You know what the score was?
Wasn't it 52-0?
It's 52-6.
Oh, that hurts.
It's a 48-point spread. How do they do that?
I don't know how they do. It was another Michigan. I think it was Michigan. Yeah, was it Michigan? I think Michigan. Whoever they played. There
was a bad beat situation.
Yeah, they missed it by like half a point or something like that.
It's insane.
I don't know how they do it.
They don't air condition the desert because they lose, folks.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop us from having fun with it. But remember, have fun responsibly. All right, when we get back here on the Team 980, 5:30 and 6:30, we are going to go through the Commanders' offense, 5:30, defense, 6:30. Best case scenario for the season, worst case scenario for the season. It's next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Tomorrow on the show, we will go through the best case scenario for some of the Commanders' key players and the worst case scenarios and see what that would mean for the team in terms of wins and losses in 2024. But today, Anthony, our focus in a lot of ways is on scheme. Yeah, we're getting football nerdy with it. We are looking at scheme stuff. We're going to look deeper into how the NFL is making that easier coming up at 6 o'clock with Bill Smith, the NFL's Director of Research and Analytics. But, Anthony, I wanted to talk off the heels of our conversation with Nate Tice on Friday. We talked with Nate he was here with us for 3 segments talking about how Jaden Daniels fits with Cliff Kingsbury and then some of the offensive and defensive trends of the year schematically and what he's seeing as he breaks down the whole league. And I think the biggest thing to remember in all of this is that offensively, teams are trying to generate explosive plays. And defensively, they're trying to prevent explosive plays. And I think what's interesting about Cliff is they are going to try to generate their explosive plays in 2 ways, one of which is super traditional and one of which is, I don't want to call it less traditional, I'm going to call it less known. The first is vertical shots in the passing game. They are hunting those opportunities. The other is less fun to talk about. It's game plan runs, but we'll get to that in a second. So in the passing game, what I think is really fun about what Cliff does is they're going to use formations to create matchups. And a lot of times it's, let's go 3 wide receivers on one side, 1 wide receiver on the other. And this is what he did in Arizona. This is what he's done, and it's a kind of a staple of the air raid offense, even though he's not running the air raid. This is just basic. If we know as an offense that if we have 3 receivers on one side and 1 on the other, that you're going to play a certain coverage, and on that one-on-one side, that 1 receiver side, you're going to get one-on-one coverage. Go ball. It's time. Like, let's send Terry down the field. Let's send Diami down the field. Let's send, all these other dudes that run 4.3s or are big and strong kind of have a physicality to their route running, like a Luke McCaffrey. I don't think they're going to isolate him a whole bunch. But really, it'll probably be Noah Brown, Diami, and Terry most often. Zacchaeus some. Like, my guy versus your guy. Let's throw it up there. And with a quarterback in Jaden Daniels who throws, I would say immediately, a top 10 deep ball in the NFL before he's even taken a snap. Best deep ball thrower in the draft in terms of accuracy and placement and loft and like kind of understanding how to drop it in the bucket. I think that's a good plan, Anthony. How about that for some analysis?
I definitely think it's a great plan. And we also got to see it, on display in the preseason. We got to see it during training camp. I think, that's what they want to do. They want to be able to, target that portion of the field. And the fact that, guys like Diami Brown's coming around, he's, making plays. Hopefully that, translates to the season because he's had some good preseasons and it hasn't necessarily, translated to the regular season. So the fact that, we're giving our guys on the outside chance to go up there, be great. I think Jaden could be, poised for a big, season. But I think that also is going to be dependent upon how well the running game goes because, again, the run game can set up the pass game. And I don't think Brian Robinson, I think he's one of the more underrated backs in the league. And it's in part because we've been losing. Like, there hasn't really been a lot of excitement, to build around him. So I feel like –
Well, and last year the offensive coordinator forgot that running
too.
The ball can happen even though he played running back.
That too. But, yeah, if B-Rob goes out there and do what we've seen him do, just not the workload that, he's deserving of, I think we can definitely be excited for some big plays down the field.
Yeah, I mean, B-Rob last year had one of the higher yards over expected run, stats. You go to kind of the advanced stats, like what's it blocked for, what do you get? He had 40 more yards than was blocked for last year, which was, I believe, top 10 in the NFL amongst running backs. I think definitely top 15, if not top 10 in the NFL. But it was a good number. And he just still averaged 4.5 yards a carry because he just didn't have that many carries, and the blocking at times in the run game was not very good. With that said, we can circle back to the run game in a second. I think his usage in the passing game could be huge. And I think that, the other thing about kind of the way Cliff schemes it up, those one-on-ones, that outside stuff is there's not a great counter to it defensively that doesn't have other deficiencies. So, like, your running game becomes really important because the way to make it so that you can't have one-on-one on the outside is you play cover 2 or cover 4. Well, now you don't have enough players in the box to support the run. Okay, so now we're in single high structures, middle field closed structures, if you want to get super nerdy with it. It just means there's a safety in the middle of the field, right? So that's cover 1, where it's true man-to-man on the outside, 1 safety in the middle, or cover 3, which is for vertical routes, essentially man-to-man on the outside because you're responsible for a deep third in a straight line as a corner, and a safety in the middle that can kind of help you, but it's not really. And especially if you're playing cover 3 and there's 3 receivers on one side and 1 on the other, which side do we think that middle safety is going to cheat towards? Probably the 3 receiver side. And so it essentially creates a one-on-one island that simplifies the read. It doesn't matter if it's cover 1 or cover 3. You're not reading an in-breaking or a slant route and it's like, is that guy playing man or is he falling off into another throw potentially? Like, my guy is running straight at the other guy. And if you have good receivers who can read that stuff well and read leverage and a quarterback is on the same page, and this is how Jaden Daniels lived often at LSU because he had such great receivers on the outside, is, okay, well, now our plan to stop it as a defense is we're just going to play really far off. Okay, well, then we're just going to run up until your cushion runs out, and we're going to stop, and we're going to turn around. The football is going to hit us between the numbers, 1 and the 7, right on the 2 if you're Diami, whatever version of that is, and we're going to just get chunk yards by the way, get chunk yards on an island where if we slip a tackle, we're up the sideline. And now that safety that was kind of shaded to the other side has got to run all the way over and make a tackle. So it simplifies things in a way that is great, especially for a young quarterback. And I think the last part of it, Anthony, why it's so good for this team is it happens quickly, right? You don't need a ton of protection to throw a go ball. There are some deeper developing route concepts that if you're running, scissors concepts and you've got the, hey, we're running up and then we're going to switch and one receiver's running a post and the other's running a corner. Like, you're running a leak route with a tight end where he's got to, 1, he's not the fastest dude on the planet. 2, he's got to kind of get up through the defense and then up the other way. Like, that stuff takes a lot of time. And it takes time to wait to see it. Not only does it take time to run, it takes time to see. You need 3 seconds in the pocket. It's press coverage. I got my matchup. Safety can't get over there. It may not be a 70-yard go ball, but we can hit a 30-yard fade real easy. And that kind of stuff is really important. Then you have, obviously, the solution, if you hit a couple of those, is, okay, well, now we got 2 safeties and we got someone over there to help over the top. Okay, now we've taken the defender out of the box. And that's where Cliff's willingness to run the football and Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler's skill is a counterpunch. And so it is like the game is not that simple, but it starts with that of understanding where the numbers advantage is. And I think Cliff traditionally has been actually pretty good at this. And it's enhanced, by the way, with a quarterback run game because that makes it even harder to be right.
How worrisome do you think it is, because I love the fact that it is simple for Jaden, but as we've seen with Cliff Kingsbury's offenses, they usually start off good. They function very well to start, but then down the stretch of the season, it sort of kind of gets figured out. So how worried would you say you are with, a simplified version of the offense or Jaden, working early on? Say we are winning, say we are losing, but the offense is functional. How worrisome would it be on the back end, though?
I'm worried.
Oh, okay.
It's been a thing. Do I have faith that he can do it? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Like, I truly think it's a 50-50 proposition of whether Cliff finally is like, I know this is a thing. I don't have to worry about being a head coach. This is an NFL. I'm in the NFL. This isn't college. I got to figure it out. And he does. I'm also like, what is the underlying cause of why he couldn't figure that out in the past? He's really smart. He's not a dummy as a human, and he's not a football dummy. So what is the underlying thing that can he not do it during a season, and has that thing been addressed? And I don't know. And so I think there is a level to that of like, what do you keep in your bag / what counters, and also like, what are the defenses? I've just described like this really hard conundrum that is pretty basic of, do you have the numbers to stop the run, or the numbers to the people in place to limit some of the vertical passing against what is a very fast Commanders receiving core and a quarterback who throws the ball deep very well? Like, there's only so many answers to that. And part of that is going to be the horses of the teams that you play against. Like, do they find ways to disguise coverage that work? Do they have the players to make those disguises work? Because, yeah, if you got, the ultimate example of Troy Polamalu that's showing double A gap blitz and then is a single high safety 30 yards off the ball, and he can somehow be both showing blitz and then be a middle field safety. You thought you had cover zero, and then Troy Polamalu picks you off 40 yards down the field. Like, that's not a scheme issue. That's a player issue. And so that's not what happened to Cliff. Obviously, Troy had retired by the time that Cliff was in Arizona. But, like, just an example of the some of this is player related, some of this is scheme related. It's happened consistently enough that there's something that's scheme related, and I'm hoping that by November I don't have or by December I don't have clarity as to why Cliff can't make those adjustments, but I fully understand that it could be a part of the process. Real quickly, just to not leave the shoe undone, if you will. We're walking around with our shoelace untied. The game plan run stuff is something that Cliff has been pretty good at. The most simplistic description of a game plan run is like, we know you like this blitz, or we know you will line up in a certain alignment based off of our personnel. And so we know that if we can get you where we want you, we can stick an extra blocker somewhere where you're not expecting. And that might open up a second level, where a guy at the second level is normally free to make a tackle. We're going to ignore someone somewhere else because we know we can get away with it based off our scouting. We're going to put that blocker on the second level, and now we're into the secondary. And you see some big, big plays where this happened a lot to the Commanders, actually. They got game plan run on a ton last year. They were down in, down out against most teams with base runs, pretty consistent. And then you'd have teams just figure out, we can get 4 to 5 a game that are 20-plus yards because they're going to react a certain way to this thing. And you only get it once because then you make an adjustment. But there was enough of those things in the defense the last couple of years that the Commanders have gotten killed by it. And Cliff's been pretty good at getting teams on that stuff. So definitely something to watch for some of the big explosive plays. And we'll have the chance to break them down on Take Command, and we'll bring some of the analysis here to the radio as well. We'll get to the defense and how they scheme it up coming up at 6:30. We will let you know how much easier it is to watch film if that's your thing. Coming up at 6 o'clock. Really, really cool. Even if you're not that into the film, but you kind of want to understand how a lot of the NFL teams are looking at the information available to them. Great chat with Bill Smith of the NFL Network and the NFL's Director of Research and Analytics coming up at 6 o'clock. But next, when we last left our heroes, Friday, I had a huge problem in my home. And I'm going to tell you how it got resolved over the weekend and make a public service announcement based off of that. No, I'm like an actual real thing that can help you. Next on your radio, the way radio is supposed to be, damn it. Coming up at 6 p.m., Bill Smith, the NFL's Director of Research and Analytics, joins us here on the Hoffman Show. Right now, though, Anthony, an update on a very important story from Friday on the show. If folks remember, I think it was about this time, actually, that we let the folks in on some struggles that I was having. And, of course, with the long weekend we weren't on yesterday. Plus, there was a very important update this morning that will ultimately result in a PSA, a true old-fashioned public service announcement. So Washington Gas holds the monopoly for gas service in this area, and specifically in the District of Columbia, where I am a district resident. And we woke up on Wednesday morning to an email and a voicemail and all of the mails that our gas had been shut off because, well, there was a smell of a leak, and they came at 11 p.m. the night before, unbeknownst to us, because we live in a condo unit, and they got into the garage area, which is a common area, and shut it off, and that's good. Good job, Washington Gas, because gas leaks are bad, Anthony. Definitively, gas leaks are bad. So then we went through a whole kerfuffle of calling them and being like, hey, you guys shut off our gas. Like, what do we do now? And they're like, you have to call a technician. And I'm like, well, we can't. That's kind of stupid because we're renters in a condo building. And so we contacted our landlord and contacted our building management, and they were actually super duper helpful. Everyone on our end did a great job. They called a tech. Tech came out there, fixed it. And then we had to call Washington Gas again and tell them to come turn our gas back on, because even though we could have the building fix our gas, because for account security reasons, we had to be the ones to then be like, hey, it's fixed. They couldn't, trust the building management because we have our own individual accounts, blah, 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 blah. And so we called them, and we have been told, like, hey, call back as soon as it's fixed, and we'll do a same-day appointment. Didn't get fixed till late at night on Wednesday. So we call first thing on Thursday, and they're like, sorry, we don't have any availability today. And so we're like, we just don't have gas today? And they're like, no. I was like, that's not what you said yesterday. And they're like, sorry. I'm like, fine. Please come early as you can tomorrow. So Friday comes around and got no gas, and it's getting closer to like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we call and we're like, hey, what the hell? They're like, sorry, we can't give you an ETA. We said 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And oh, by the way, it might be after 5 p.m. It might not be until at least not, like the latest is 9 p.m. And we're like, oh, hell no. You told us same day. They're now going on 2 days. This is nonsense. And so around 5 o'clock, my lovely, sweet wife, who is typically very mild-mannered and very, very kind and all of those things, she called Washington Gas, and she lost it. Because they were like, we can't tell you anything. And she's like, you better be able to tell us anything, because we're now at the point where we have no hot water. This is a safety and sanitation issue. And here's the thing about my wife, Anthony. She's really smart, and she's really good at researching stuff. And while she is not a lawyer, she works at a law firm. And so she went and looked up all of the litigation against Washington Gas for, you guessed it, poor customer service in response to gas leaks and turning customers' gas back on, and found out that they had been sued multiple times for multi-million dollars. And she is now bringing this up to the people on the phone of like, this seems to be a problem for you. If you'd like it to not be a problem again moving forward, you might want to come turn our gas back on.
And they turned it on, I'm assuming.
Nope.
What?
Nope. Not only did they not turn it on, some Yahoo at Washington Gas, in an effort, because we, at that point, the show ended, and I get on this phone call too, and I'm like, what in the absolute hell are you guys doing? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to send someone to our house to turn our gas back on. And so they, apparently angry that we were upset that they weren't providing the thing that they're supposed to, some Yahoo supervisor who had already one person gave Rachel one story, someone else said something else. We found out, by the way, that apparently, according to one of the people that we talked to, a tech had come to our place to turn it back on, couldn't find parking, and left without calling. And so, couldn't find parking. We didn't respond. We didn't answer. They didn't call either of us, and they just left. And they didn't call us to be like, hey, there's a problem. We need better directions. No, like we were just, that's why we had to call again to be like, hey, what happened? And so eventually, some Yahoo we find out later, in a way that I'll explain in a second, and I still promise this is getting to me not complaining, but an action item for anybody who's listening that has a similar problem. Someone changed the request type, because remember, long weekend to Monday, which in order to do that, or sorry, for Tuesday, we weren't going to get our gas back until today because we didn't pay our bill, which is not true because we're on auto pay, which we found out when we called their emergency line. Because while their customer service line was closed, we called their emergency line and was like, hello, we have an emergency. You haven't turned our gas back on, and we no longer have hot water, and this is a problem. And it was caused by, because it's the gas leak line, caused by a gas leak. I was not going to fake a gas leak. That is very bad. Don't do that. I was honest with the dispatcher, a lovely lady named Pam, who was incredibly helpful and told us that the other person had put that false claim in our account, which led to my wife, the very law-savvy, very thorough human that she is, filing a complaint with the city, which is exactly where the PSA comes in. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls in the greater Washington area, if you are listening, Rachel heard back this morning real quick from the city. And if you ever have a problem with your utilities, did you know you can just call the city and they'll take care of it for you because they don't play. And so we are looking forward to hearing more from the city's investigative unit on our behalf. And I'm sure Washington Gas is not. Shout out to Pam, who helped us out and was actually helpful, and to Paul, the service tech, who came and turned on our gas fairly early on Saturday morning. Because by the time we got off the phone with Pam, she could make no promises, but she's like, you call in the morning and you say this, and you should get service really quick, and we sure did. And the PSA is the city has an accountability for utilities, the Power Commission, and if you need help with any of your power issues, apparently you can give them a call, and they'll be a lot better than the folks that we dealt with. That's the story. That's the update, Anthony. And we enjoyed hot water all weekend long.
Man, you guys went through some hoops to get that gas on. Oh, my gosh.
Can you believe that they freaking lied to us and then tried to falsely change our, like, how stupid, like, all the calls are recorded. All the files are, like, what? And the laws are really strict because these are public utilities.
Yeah.
Idiots. Well, and by the way,
guys,
that's the emergency line. We were pretty sure that all the best folks work there because of all the lawsuits that probably happened on that part of the company.
Yeah.
And look, I respect that everyone's got a job to do and that a lot of people are out there trying to do their best. But to whoever was working that customer service line, maybe you just wanted to get home. We just wanted power in our house, which I did say to them. I was like, if this was your family, would this be a satisfactory answer? And there was a long silence on the other end of the phone. So, yeah.
Good
times.
gracious.
All right. Anyway, we get back to football. Bill Smith, the NFL's director of research and analytics, joins us here on the Hoffman Show. All right, final hour on a Vibe Check Tuesday here on the Hoffman Show. If you missed the Vibe Check in hour one, that's what the podcast is for. Just search the Hoffman Show wherever you get your podcasts, including the only place you can also listen live to the show, the free Odyssey app. Well, of course, outside of your radio, or unless you want to watch it, then we're on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Earlier today, I had the chance to catch up with Bill Smith, the NFL Director of Research and Analytics, talk about the brand new NFL Pro, and here's that conversation. Joining us now is the NFL's Director of Research and Analytics, and that is a big title, and he does a lot of really cool stuff. It's Bill Smith, and Bill, a lot more of that cool stuff is going to be accessible to all of us this year, as there is a whole new, you guys aren't even calling it Game Pass anymore. It's NFL Plus. NFL Pro is the extension of the NFL Plus, where you guys are now allowing sorting and searching and all kinds of cool stuff, all kinds of integration to the all-22 game film and a lot of the next-gen stats and features. I've probably just done a terrible job butchering, Bill, all of the cool stuff that you do. It's just so much stuff, it's hard to encapsulate. So first of all, thanks for your time and welcome to the show. And two, I would say, do you want to do a better job of what I just did of kind of explaining some of the new stuff here? And then we're actually going to give folks that are watching, as opposed to listening to this, a demo of what you guys have built. So again, welcome. And how would you try to summarize what you guys tried to do with this new project?
No, thanks, Craig. Appreciate you having me. I think you did a pretty good job. So what we've done with the Next Gen Stats specifically platform is it's been something that's been internal facing that we've had access to since 2016. We've really been ramping it up, trying to add as many cool stats and data points as we can to contextualize the game, to really get fans more in-depth knowledge of what's exactly playing out on the field. And we've been working over the past year or so to really try to get fans a better offering so they can engage with the data. So as you mentioned, we released NFL Pro as part of the NFL Plus Premium subscription for this season. NFL Pro really productizes a lot of the great next-gen stats and other data that the NFL holds. And then what we really wanted to do is we really wanted to tie everything to the All-22, to the coaches' film, so that you can see just the power of the data and that you can see the validity of the data, so that you can not just say, like, hey, here's this number and this stat, like, what does it really mean? Well, we tied all the plays that fall underneath specific filters and queries, so you can watch just that subset of playlists. You can search all 22 and watch all of a quarterback's third and long attempts, all those attempts against the blitz, to really like hone in and be more efficient on how you're watching film, to be able to give fans really a best-in-class experience.
So this is something that teams through a variety of platforms have had access to for a long time. I always just kind of wondered that the more that the league has extended the ability to watch the All-22, especially to media, and then certainly to fans as well, whether you just kind of go in some of those platforms and like, hey, let's add a 33rd team that there's no access to practice footage, and like let's just try to do that. Why ultimately did you guys go the route you did, building something new that is more integrated into the familiar place that fans and media have been finding All-22 film and the next-gen stats for years?
We really just wanted to democratize access to the data in the film. There shouldn't be a barrier to entry, whether it's from a media side, whether it's wanting to break into coaching, scouting, whatever that may be. Like having access to do your own research, to get yourself more familiar with the game, to learn more about the games. Like that's what we want for fans, for media. That's what we want for everyone throughout the football ecosystem. Like everyone getting more access to data, more access to the video only brings the level of intelligence of everyone up. It only brings the level of awareness of everyone up. And it just really like lets people a little bit more on the inside. It helps them, as we call it NFL Pro. It helps you like be more of a pro with your fandom, with your content on the media side. We really just want to, give everyone the ability to access all the great data that we have access to.
No doubt. And I will say it will help this show a lot because, instead of us having to sort through, or like if I used to want to watch a team back and be like, all right, I want to watch the Commanders' next opponent and I want to watch just their offense, like I'd have to kind of scroll through. It was a little bit clunky, to be nice about it, Bill. I'm sure you have gotten a lot of feedback on that over the years from all angles. But now I can just sort through, and we'll give folks a demo of that in just a second. But one last question I have for you on the front end here, Bill, before we dive into the product itself is, data is only as good as folks' ability to use it. Every team across the league has basically the same data. Their ability to use that data, creates for them a competitive advantage or disadvantage if they're not using it well. When you think about fan-facing data and making sure that it gets that fans really understand what they're looking at, do you have either a good example or kind of an overall methodology that you think about in making sure that the data, now that it's all available, is used to really enhance fans' understanding of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. We tried to design the platform with a large spectrum of fans in mind. If you're a real diehard, avid, heavy data fan, you'll see when I give the demo of the product, we have statistical dashboards that you can dive into, do your own research, and pull out your own insights and findings. If you're a more casual fan and you want to sort of be led to water of like how we can utilize this data, my team each and every week is going through and doing research for, NFL Network, NFL Media. We're working with the game crews and providing some of what we think are the best insights that may lead and help determine the outcome of a game based on team tendencies, team performance, player performance, scheme. All of those are in here and they're sort of spoon-fed to you throughout the process. So if you're more casual, we can sort of elevate to what we think is the most important things each week. And if you're more avid and you want to do the research yourself, we've provided the mechanism for you to be able to do that.
Bill Smith, NFL Director of Research and Analytics, now going to show us this fancy new product. And I will describe for everyone who's listening to this on the radio or catches this on the on-demand and podcast form, kind of what is on the screen to the best that I can. But of course, if you want to check out with the visual, Bill and the folks at the NFL have given us the green light to be able to actually show you all 22 tape at the Team 980 and at Craig Hoffman on YouTube. So, Bill, I'm going to go ahead and pull up this shared screen that you have, and you can take us where are you going to take us, because there's a stats platform, then there's kind of a film platform. So this from just on a baseline level looks like you have kind of the two sites that used to live in Game Pass on the film side, and then the next gen stats site are now all in one place. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. So when we land you here on the homepage of NFL Pro, we sort of give you openings to the rabbit holes for each of the two main offerings in the product. You have the stats section, you have the film room. If you scroll down on the homepage, there are a few more things. We have some of those custom insights that I talked about for teams and players for each week going in. You scroll down, one of the things we really wanted to do is really explain what the next gen stats data is, what it's measuring, and why it's important for all of your football and fantasy decision making. So there's a lot of educational components throughout the product. You scroll down more, we have each matchup throughout the week. You can scroll through and click and get a little top line information on each one. Continue to scroll down, there's some high level stats and standings, but I'll go back up and I'll start with the stats page. So if you click into the
which, by the way, right now features Terry McLaurin as the featured image. Bill, I don't know if you did that just for us, but we're going to pretend that you did and say we appreciate it.
Hey, I'll take it. Any credit we can get, we'll take the positive feedback. So again, you scroll into season stats, it lands you on the passing page. We have stats pages for passing, rushing, receiving, and defense from an individual perspective, as well as team offense and team defense. Again, right at the top of the page, we have some sort of explainer content on some of the metrics. So you look at time to throw, it sort of tells you how we categorize them, what the NFL average is on a pass at about 2.75 seconds, and then some stats that are correlated and related to time to throw. So if you think about quarterback pressure, that's related on time to throw. The longer the quarterback holds onto a pass, the more likely he is to be pressured. And then air yards per attempt, the longer the quarterback holds on to the ball, the more likely it is for him to throw the ball further downfield. So just some of that more educational content to sort of show fans what they're going to see below. If you scroll down in passing, it's just like any other stats table you've seen. For this, I want to go into the rushing though and look at some Commanders stuff in general. You go into the rushing stats, you scroll down, you have the stats table.
And there's both basic and advanced stats here. Just for the folks listening, you have yards and yards from scrimmage, rushing yards, whatever version this looks like. Mm-hmm. Did McCaffrey really have 1,400 rushing yards last year?
He did. He had almost 300 more rushing yards than anyone else in the league.
God, I didn't realize that. That's why I said for a second, I was like, that yards from scrimmage? No, Christian McCaffrey actually had 1,459 yards rushing last year. It helps when he averages 5.4 a carry. But you also have things like rush EPA, and you have a lot more advanced stats down here as well. And I think what's really cool, Bill, on this right side of the chart here, the table, is you also have some how many times did he get into a rush where he breaks 15 or 20 miles an hour. So you talk about the explosive ability and like when do these guys really get into the third level and get to open it up. You get to see how often that happens. So that's really cool. And on the next gen side of it as well.
Absolutely. So if you go through here, you can then utilize some of the next gen stats splits to see how different running backs are faring in different situations. So if you open up the splits, you can look at inside or outside the tackles, how they're doing versus how many defenders are in the box, whether the quarterback's in shotgun, under center, or pistol, where they are, if it's red zone or goal to go, like big upside there for fantasy usage. So if we click into light box, so from a Commander's perspective, maybe didn't see as many light boxes as other teams in the league last season. Now with a rushing quarterback in Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury wanting to open up the offense a little bit, maybe you see more light boxes. So if you sort the rushing by the rushing yards over expected, which is a next-gen stats metric that tries to isolate the running back's contribution indifferent of the offensive line and a lot of the scheme, you can see that, Brian Robinson was 15th in the league last season. And even though he may have only averaged 4.5 yards per carry against the light box, and that might not be one of the highest in the league, you can see that he gained 40 yards over what he was expected to gain on those particular rushes last season. The really, really cool thing about all these statistical dashboards and everything within NFL Pro, you see if you're watching a lot of gold numbers on the stats dashboards, any number that is gold is a link. So Brian Robinson had 93 rush attempts against the light box last season. I can click that 93
and then I can go watch them.
It automatically curates
money,
that
Bill.
playlist.
That's great stuff, Bill. That's what we're talking about.
So it goes in and it plays those 93 plays. We have all the metadata on the play. So time, quarter, down distance, field position, the 22 players who are on the field, and it just runs sideline, end zone all the way through. So in addition, we have filters on the left-hand side of the page here. So if you want to see, rushing and you only want to see, maybe they're going to look to run outside the tackles more often this season, you can select outside the tackles. It goes from 93 plays to 44 plays. Within here, the URL for someone like yourself doing content is customized to the exact playlist you have. If you share this out on social media, your followers can click in directly through this link and they'll land on the same 44 plays. So they can watch exactly what you're watching as someone who's doing the research on the Commanders week in and week out. These playlists are also savable here at the bottom. So if you want to set a 2024 playlist for Brian Robinson rushing outside the tackles against the light box, you can come back each and every week and it'll already be populated with plays from that last week's game as you continue throughout the season. So it's really cool. It's really powerful how the stats and the film work together.
So let me ask you on the kind of the your end of it. What kind of team do you have working on this, and how fast are you guys able to turn this around, considering how in-depth this is?
So we have a decent-sized team of 8 to 10 people working to get custom curated insights for every game each season throughout the week. And hold on, I can pull up the Commanders game for this week. If you go to the game page, you'll see on the matchup insights that we have things specifically curated for each game. And then the data and film, I do want to call out, are available at 6 a.m. Eastern the day following the game. So it's not updating live. It's not there directly after the game, but it is in first thing the next morning. It's the same schedule that the teams get access to the data and the all 22 from the league. So we're really democratizing it for the fan and really want to give everyone access to the same data and film that coaches, front office members, and players are privy to.
That's huge, because that has been, I'm sure you're well aware of, one of the issues, let's call it, with Game Pass in the past is it's kind of a mystery box of when exactly it would pop up. And most of the time it would be there by like noon on Tuesday, but sometimes your game didn't quite pop up. But to know that it's it's a part of that same system that teams are getting. It feels like it's going to be super reliable, which is great. Really excited. Bill Smith is with us here. He is the NFL's Director of Research and Analytics. All right, Bill, we got time for maybe one more trick if you got time, if there's anything else that you want to show us on this site.
Absolutely. So as we I've talked about with my team going through and creating these custom insights each week, the first place that we start for where we go down the rabbit hole is here at what we've created on each game page. We're calling the matchup comparison tool. So we've taken each team and how they're doing in a specific subset of our next gen stats data and ranked them based on EPA per play, total EPA and success rate, and then have them on a rolling average to rank teams in certain categories such as passing under pressure or on play action, against the blitz, deep passing. And we then are able to create an advantage for teams going into certain games. I will say for the Commanders specifically, going into week 1, this is based on 2023 data, new coaching staff, new quarterback. I would say this isn't as relevant for this specific game as it is with two teams who have consistent coach quarterback. But we have this available. So if you want to start your research each week with, hey, here's a place where, the Commanders may have an advantage over their opponent, or here's a place where I think one of my fantasy players will have a big game. Like, we give this to you, and then you can go and do your own research further down the rabbit hole. It's a really powerful tool. It's a really cool way to start your research process each week, and we're just really excited to get it in the hands of fans throughout the country.
No doubt. When you say a rolling average, obviously this year, or for week 1, it's based off last year, but by week 4, let's say this year, will that just be the first 4 weeks? Will it be like 3 weeks at a time? How is that going to evolve throughout the season to try to capture current form?
So it'll be a rolling average with just looking at 2024. So again, in weeks, rolling into weeks 2 and 3, the sample sizes are going to be small, but as we continue to go throughout the season and get more data on teams, it'll become more and more powerful. Really, just as a quick one, if you go into the kickoff game and look and click on the matchups for the Chiefs and the Ravens, one that always sticks out to us is the Ravens play action pass offense ranked first in the league last season. Lamar Jackson averaged almost 11 yards per attempt on play action, and that's a place the Chiefs defense struggled last season. So again, Baltimore adds Derrick Henry. The Chiefs lose L'Jarius Sneed this offseason. We see that as an advantage for Baltimore. Maybe that's somewhere that they lean in this kickoff game to try to pull off the upset in Kansas City.
This is awesome stuff. And I've gotten a glimpse of some of this over the years with some of the people that I've worked with. And when I was a beat reporter, and occasionally a player would pull out their iPad and show me something, and the way they could navigate it. And I love that word that you've used, to democratize this for fans everywhere. It's really tremendous stuff. So first of all, thank you. Second of all, thank you for your time here on the show. And best of luck with everything that you're doing. This is awesome stuff, Bill, and we really appreciate you sharing it with us.
Absolutely. Again, NFL Pro is available as part of NFL Plus Premium. It's a really awesome product. We're really proud of it. And any feedback you have, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill, you're doing my job now, but just to make sure that we got all the copy points in, NFL Pro provides access to all 22 coaches' film and next gen stats. It's available with an NFL Plus premium subscription at pro.nfl.com. And for more information on NFL Plus, visit nfl.com/plus. Bill Smith, everybody, NFL Director of Research and Analytics, with us.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube on the team or at the Team 980 as well. And Anthony, I will mention the YouTube because actually I have a question as we get into the Commanders defense. Do we consider there to be 4 returning starters or 5 returning starters on this unit from last year? And I know that might sound like a really silly question, but I was making the graphic that we put, because on the show, we're professionals. It's not just Anthony and I in boxes talking about sports. It's Anthony and I in boxes with the graphic below us, like a proper radio show that's being put on video. As we have the DC skyline in our graphic. It's very fancy. But I said only 4 starters remain from league worst 2023 unit because I'm not going to count Quan Martin as a returning starter. Where he's playing is not where he played last year, and he wasn't a starter for most of the season. And I don't know that he would have been had there been injuries. So of the 11 players that started and were primary starters for the Commanders last year, the only 4 that are still in their spots this year, as we take a look at the Commanders defense and how they're going to use all these guys from a schematic standpoint, what they're trying to accomplish, etc., are John Allen, Daron Payne, Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St-Juste. Every single other starter is different. Both edges, famously gone. The linebacking core, totally different. Starting safeties, Chin and Quan. Quan was a nickel last year, not a safety, even though he wound up playing a little bit of safety by the end of the year. But he's a full-time safety now, and he's the starter. He was never the starting safety last year. And guys like Derek Forrest and Percy Butler, who are now reserves. Jeremy Reeves, reserve. The corners, there's not even another corner on the roster that is a holdover from last year, if I'm remembering correctly. Because Kendall's gone, and they cut Castro Fields and all the backups. Christian Holmes got cut a week into camp. Linebacker wise, Jamin's back, but he ain't playing linebacker anymore. And on the D line, Big Phil's the only guy that's around. So it is, for a unit that was real bad, they sure turned it over, Ant, which we can talk about the X's and O's in a second, but the old Jimmies and Joes are different Jimmies and different Joes.
Yeah, you got a lot of work to do. But I think the revamped defense essentially, it's more so just, again, in response to how poor our roster was last year. But I think when it comes to, looking at the 4 starters that are returning, I think John and Daron, I think they have big seasons ahead. And we're going to talk about it later in the week. But when I think about players whose seasons or, I guess seasons we should be monitoring, I think John and Daron are right up there. And I would really put John Allen ahead of Daron, to be honest, just because of, I guess he's going to be going into a contract season.
Yep.
Super soon. And then also
this is kind of a contract year for him. He's got no guaranteed money after this season.
Exactly.
And we know how that goes in the league.
So I just think our eyes are going to be on, John, whether or not we keep him. Again, Adam Peters did say we have a couple of cornerstone pieces. Is John Allen one of those cornerstone pieces that we have? And defensively, I would love that, love it for that to be the case. But at the same token, John Allen, he wants to win. So that's also, something to be monitoring, whether or not he's willing to, continue to buy into what we have here, or, if he wants to look.
It's going the right direction. Yeah. And it feels like it's only got a couple more years left, which is crazy because John's
sound like he just signed his contract.
Yeah. Or it just also feels like he just got drafted yesterday.
That too.
Not ready for John Allen old guy, but we're kind of a John Allen old guy. Relative to the rest of the roster, outside of obviously some of the vets they bring in, Zach and Bobby, etc. But it also feels like, John and Terry specifically have been guys that have had to be leaders and step up in ways that they weren't really prepared for, and be vets since the days they were drafted because they didn't do a good job of filling out the locker room with the right guys otherwise. And now you have guys legit gold jacket guy in Wagner and potential gold jacket guy in Ertz that have legitimate NFL experience far beyond anything John Allen and Terry McLaurin have ever experienced. And this is one of the first times in their careers that they can say that. They can look around the room and be like, oh, man, it's not all on me. I think it's interesting because when we did our most important commanders countdown, we put Duran ahead of John, and that gets into some of the scheme stuff. I think how they move these guys around is going to be really fascinating. And one thing that has caught my eye is a very silly little thing, but they have listed Dante Fowler as an outside linebacker. And Frankie Louvu is obviously an outside linebacker. I wonder if we're going to see some legitimate base 3-4 stuff from them this year in times when you're not actually expecting base defenses. And what I mean by that is, do you see Dante Fowler, Frankie Louvu on the edge around John Duran and Jerzon Newton in third down situations? It's like, this is our blitz package. What's up? It's a 3-4 front. And maybe Dominique Hampton is the linebacker behind it. Or is Bobby still out there? Or do they just play a bunch of safe? Like, they've got so much positional versatility and flexibility that it is both exciting and terrifying, I think, if you're a Commanders fan. And this gets into some of the scheme questions in terms of, like, what are they going to do this year? One, I think it is going to be less high risk than we saw in the preseason and in camp. Dan Quinn said straight up, we wanted to test guys and see how they would handle certain situations in ways that we might not during the regular season. So this idea that they're going to put Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes out on islands and be like, hey, sorry, this is just how we play, I have a hard time believing that's going to be true. Not that it won't happen some. There's going to be times in the NFL where as a corner, you got to play man-to-man, or you're in a corner 3 and you wind up in essentially a man-to-man, and you just gotta strap on your helmet and go play. That's football, baby. But there's also times where you can show that stuff and then try to create opportunities to create turnovers. Like, let's show single high, then all of a sudden we're going to rotate to 2, and it's a simulated pressure, and that corner that looked like he was in a cover 1 or cover 3 man-to-man is actually in cover 2, and that creates a prime chance to confuse a quarterback and throw a ball right to a DB. And you got to catch it. And even if you don't know what any of the cover 2 and rotated safeties and simulated pressures, stuff that I just said means, like, you understand what it means to trick a quarterback and have one him throw one right to you. That's good. Those are the kinds of things that haven't been happening here in the past. And, you have to become really clear with your assignments. And that is something that has been emphasized this year is, hey, we want you to go after this other thing that you used to have to also worry about. Don't worry about that. That's someone else's job. And if we lose on that, I'm not going to yell at you. And I think beyond the schematic stuff, where I think they'll have a mix of coverages, I think there'll be some single high stuff, some 2 high stuff. They'll ask some guys to play man-to-man sometimes. They'll be in a lot of zone match. They'll have different options and I think you'll see a lot of small guys on the field, a lot of trying to get team speed on the field. The most important thing is they play fast and they play physical. And I know that's like maybe not the most in-depth analysis, but I think what you saw last year is what happens when you play slow, you play hesitant, and you lack physicality. You give up a lot of points, it's really ugly, and everyone hates it, and you lose a lot. And I think on a baseline level this year, the fast physical part is going to be present. And then how they actually deploy those, all those different players, Anthony, that is going to evolve on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, I think the last point you just made sort of kind of answers the question I had, because they had 12 starters listed. I don't know if you peeped that.
Well, because they had the 2 outside linebacker spots as a way to get Fowler on there, and then they had Sainer still listed, who I haven't even mentioned yet, but is going to, I think, be huge. God, by the way, I watched the Connor Stallions doc this weekend on Netflix, and we can talk about that another time, perhaps. I don't know when we're going to talk about it because our week is loaded getting ready for the games and the NFL to start. But the amount of times and big moments where Mike Sainer still is present for Michigan football last year, that dude is such a freaking baller. I cannot wait to watch him play.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, he switched to Diami's 2. Sainer still's back to 0 like he was at Michigan.
Scary.
And Mariota switched to 18.
Who's 8?
I don't know.
Oh, Brian Robinson.
Oh yeah, B-Rob. So yeah, he's 18. So that's that. But I think Sainer still, like, that's the other big question I have is how much does Sainer still play inside versus outside? Do they when they're in base? What do they do with him? Is he coming off the field? Because he's physical enough to go fit runs. Like he'll go melee somebody. But I think keeping him out of that is probably good. And just like it's so funny because offensively, like we know who the players are, and my big question is how is Cliff going to use them? Defensively, I feel like my much bigger questions are how are you going to use, like which players are actually going to play, right? It's still how you use the players, but we don't know which ones are going to be on the field. And it's probably going to change week over week. But how much Dominique Hampton do we see? How much Derek Forrest do we see? How much Percy Butler? How much Sainer Still? Like how much Jamin? How much Javonte Jean-Baptiste? How much Dante Fowler? Where is Frankie Louvu lining up, snap in, snap out? So there's just a lot of questions. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. Joe Witt Jr. put it together this year. Obviously, DQ will have some input as well, but they got smart dudes. And I don't want to say it's boom or bust, but it could boom, it could bust. Likely it's going to be some mix in the middle where some guys will boom, some guys will bust, and then they'll address the ones that busted next offseason. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, we'll wrap up the show with our favorite thing from the show today and real things real people said into real microphones. right, wrapping up here on the Team 980. Great show today. It was a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we had a good one. A lot of great calls in the first hour of the show. I explained also why I am cautiously optimistic for the Commanders in 2024. If you missed any of that, podcast, YouTube, the whole deal. But, Anthony, what if people want to go back and listen now that we're running out of show here in the next 12 minutes? What was your favorite part of the show today?
I'm not gonna lie.
I hate when you say that. Like, if you now people are gonna be like, "Oh, he didn't say he's not gonna lie. Is he lying to us?" You spit the truth, Anthony. No one's doubting you.
Okay. My favorite part of the show was your gas story, man. I'm happy that you and Rachel got.
Oh, we should very much clarify what you mean by my gas story.
Oh, okay.
The story I told about the gas in my home.
Yes.
As in the public utility.
Yes. Craig had a gas leak, guys, and it got resolved.
Yes.
And this was an ongoing problem for a couple of days.
The gas leak itself was resolved quickly. Getting my gas back on, nightmare. But it ended in a public service announcement for everyone. And I personally did not have a gas problem.
No.
Anthony.
I see how that could have been taken out of context to a newcomer, somebody that didn't tune in earlier.
The whole point of this segment of our favorite part of the show is that we're talking to people that we assume were not listening earlier in the show and telling them, hey, we know that we're running out of show and you might not be running out of commute and you should go listen to the parts that you missed on the podcast. Here's something you can look specifically for. And you started that process by talking about Craig's gas story.
Yes. So, guys, if you are listening now, go back to 5:50 p.m. or go back to the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen, and listen to Craig's gas story.
Well, now that we've explained it, that's a perfectly reasonable way to describe it.
Yes.
Any other chaos you'd like to cause, sir?
Oh, yes, I have another favorite part. Marvin had a good call today.
By Marvin standards. It wasn't.
You even said it. Marvin, this might have been your best call into the show ever.
As they would say in Boston, low bar.
Outside of that, I would not like to start any other fires.
Okay. How was your weekend, by the way?
My weekend was fantastic. I saw a shootout this weekend between Clark Atlanta and Fort Valley State down in Fort Valley, Atlanta. And when I tell you it was a shootout, I'm talking about fireworks. 400 yards passing from one quarterback. The other quarterback, he had 2 rushing, 2 passing.
Ooh.
It was a hell of a game. Hell of a game.
Love that. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Who do you got? Who you got this coming weekend?
So this week I won't be working. I have a wedding to attend.
Oh.
One of my friends from high school, he's getting married to his longtime girlfriend. I think they've been dating since 7th or 8th grade. It's been a long time.
Consistently? Like,
yes.
I'm not trying to hate, but like if they had broken up in high school and then got back together, like that'd be still an amazing story. But 7th grade straight? Dang.
Yeah. All the way through.
That's
love
dedication.
To see it.
That is dedication.
That's love. Love is in the air.
Love is in the air. Love is in the air. You know what else is in the air? Real things, real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Okay, then. Oh, this is an Anthony, you have me intrigued. Bryce James, as in LeBron's second oldest child.
Yes, sir.
His top 5 players in NBA history.
NBA history is going to knock your socks off.
Dylan. Okay, just kidding.
Be the top 5 NBA players of all time.
LeBron, MJ,
2, okay.
Kobe.
Okay, 3. All right, here we go.
Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony.
Whoa, okay. Fair. Personal top 5. All right.
Okay, I have a question. When people give their top 5, are they giving their top, like, what's the default setting for top 5?
Right? Great question.
Top 5 your favorite 5 players?
Okay.
Or is it who do you think the best top 5 are? Because if those are his favorite 5, fine.
Okay.
It reflective of his age, a little bit of history. Some of those guys, their prime was, he's only like 17 years old. Like, he didn't even see Carmelo's prime.
Nope.
I guess he kind of did, but he was like a 9-year-old. But he was more than your average 9-year-old because, that was one of his dad's best friends.
Yeah, that's
it's Uncle Melo. But if he thinks those are the 5 best players in NBA history, then he's wrong.
Yeah, the guy that was asking the question, he did say personal preference, so I guess
That's fine. Because
I guess it is.
I think it might have been Carmelo's kid.
It was Cayenne. That said Paul George the GOAT.
Yeah, and like if that's his favorite player of all time, I'm not here to hate on people's favorites, especially teenagers.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
If you think those are the best, then you need to re-crack open your history books. On a completely different note. Sydney Colson is a menace to society. She is a guard for the world champion Las Vegas Aces. She is the self-proclaimed face of the WNBA. And she's hilarious. So funny, she got, in fact, invited to the old show Wild 'N Out, and she brought her teammates on stage. And then she did this to their faces.
Okay, this is my team. We the Las Vegas Aces. Yeah. But if we keep losing games, we gonna be in last place. Let's get it right.
Bring them on stage and embarrass them like that.
We got to tighten up, she says. Something that definitely her teammates have said to her, non-related to basketball, a lot.
That was hilarious, Craig. Hilarious because Sid Colson, like, she doesn't play a lot. So I just think, she's.
But, like, it's funny because then people think she can't play. And it's like, no,
No,
she's
she actually can.
Yeah, she's really good. And when she gets on the floor, there's times where I'm like, why didn't she play more often?
Yeah, they're loaded over there.
Yeah.
They're loaded for sure.
That's why she doesn't play more often. Because
Yeah.
she's stuck behind 3 Olympians at guard.
That is, oh, man. That was good. That was a good laugh over the weekend.
Oh, my God. I died. Alicia then tweeted, Alicia Clark, her teammate and my good friend, was like, hey, Asia Wilson, I think we need to take Sid out of the group chat. I don't think she's allowed anymore. We the Las Vegas Aces, if we don't win more games, we're going to be in last place. Come on, y'all. Let's tighten up.
She's right.
I mean, that is how wins and losses go. All right. Try to stack some more dubs tomorrow here on the Team 980.